This is Christian Cowan from Polaris MEP, the guys who are rejuvenating, expediting, refueling the state's manufacturing. You're like the illegal steroid of manufacturing here in Rhode Island. There's going to be a whole investigation. It's going to be Bobby Bonds all over again, or whichever Bonds it is that takes all the drugs. Talk a little bit about what you guys do.
Thanks for having me here, Josh. I appreciate it. Polaris MEP is a manufacturing extension partnership center. So the manufacturing.
Okay, in English now.
Okay, got it. Well, it's a federal program.
Right.
There is an MEP center in every state, and the national objective is for all the centers to help small and medium manufacturers sustain and grow. It was originated back in 1988 when the U.S. federal government saw all these small manufacturing companies close down,
right,
and they realized that they needed support in basic manufacturing principles. So all these people come up with great ideas and make products that people are willing to buy, but they didn't really have the knowledge and expertise in order to manufacture them enough and keep the business going.
So is it kind of the issues related to quality control, or was it best practices, or was it marketing? I mean, where was the void? I mean, certainly all of us know of the decay of manufacturing, especially in Rhode Island, where lots of different components of business have, in some cases, ceased to exist in the state, and much of it gone overseas. Where was the hot points, or was it all the hot points?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Josh. The core of what all the MEP centers deliver is lean manufacturing,
right,
quality systems, you hit it right on the head, facility layout, material moves. Those are all the core basic manufacturing principles that any company needs to understand in order to make something and make it profitably. So all of the MEP centers really have their staff and their expertise around those capabilities.
And then let's talk about some of the, we always had, way back when, we obviously had, we were key in costume jewelry or some of the other historical manufacturing strengths of the state. Where are we now, and where is manufacturing headed in Rhode Island?
Yeah, it's a good question. Manufacturing has changed a lot, not only in Rhode Island, but across the country. And where low-cost manufacturing is really done overseas. So manufacturers are really doing well here in this state, focusing on very specific, not even just niches, but technologies and products.
Sure.
So, for example, a lot of the old costume jewelry companies are now making more high-end metals to go in more high-end applications. We have screw manufacturers, plating, etc. So instead of going into the low-cost applications, it's really a higher value that they're providing.
And who's coming to you? Is it the CEO that's losing market share? Is it the CEO? Is it the state? Is it who's coming to you and saying, hey, we need you to help out these guys?
Yep. Usually it's the management level of the company. So we've had multiple companies come to us and say, our customer just doubled their volume with us, and we can't hire twice the staff, and we can't,
right,
go into a space that's twice as big. So can you help us, understand how we can pump out more product without burdening those costs? So we go in, do an analysis of their operations, and then help them implement some best practices in order to grow. So one example is a company that manufactures medical kits, and they send them out, and they literally had their product volume double. So we went in, did an analysis, and then he increased his staff by 20%, and doubled their product output. So it's a typical use case where people leverage Polaris MEP.
Manufacturing jobs have been coming back a little bit in Rhode Island. And what do you, besides your own good work, we're gonna chop up most of it to your good work, but what's driving that?
So the manufacturing economy here in the state, like others, is really booming. There's some influencers there. Manufacturers have figured out how to really deliver and improve their capabilities. So they are not just simply stamping out material anymore, but they're adding a higher value, which means that their manufacturing employee needs to have a higher skill set.
Yeah.
One of the most dynamic programs in the state right now is Real Jobs Rhode Island. So that's a workforce program that is driven by the employers. So Polaris is privileged to be part of that program. And when I talk to my other counterparts across the country, they talk to me about Real Jobs Rhode Island, and it really seems to be one of the programs that's setting the standard across the country in terms of workforce development.
And when, we've had a lot of guests on, and then every week we have Gary Sass and Saul Kaplan on, so kind of two different worlds, one on the finance side of business and one on the innovation side of business. But almost everybody comes through and says, hey, we've got a couple problems here. One is education level of our workforce, and that we're kind of capped, and our folks get paid so much less than the Boston market that de facto, we've got so many people commuting up to Boston on a daily basis. How do we fix that? Massachusetts, it's almost 30 years ago, kind of changed their educational system and made a huge investment into improving the quality of schools. Here, I think there's a lot of talk about it, and we're going to make buildings dry and safe, which that's at least a good start, but we're not really transforming the curricula of school systems in Rhode Island. How do we get more competitive?
So one of the misnomers about manufacturing is it's dark and dangerous and dirty, and that is not the case.
Those are the good old days,
yes, right? That's right. Not anymore. It's a clean, high-tech environment, and really the governor and a lot of the programs that she's pushing down focuses on two big areas. One from a technology aspect, so things like the innovation voucher that Commerce Rhode Island has, that is really connecting companies into new research and development and technologies to help grow their companies. But along with those technologies comes the requirement for higher skills and better labor. So through that kind of holistic, rounded approach that the governor's office is looking at, President Hughes at CCRI is really taking a strong change approach to the community college and really leveraging the technology and leveraging manufacturers and employers to help inform the curriculum to be more appropriate to the jobs that are open.
Can you do that fast enough, and is it too late at the CCRI level?
I don't think so at all.
I mean, you've got the masses going in there are deficient in all their core competencies, and they're doing remedial work for a year or two. So can you catch up?
Yeah, the programs that Polaris has going on with CCRI right now are very dynamic and give me great hope for how quickly CCRI can change. So we have a program right now that's called Fast Track to Manufacturing with CCRI.
Sure.
And that is really very dynamic and very adaptable to employers' needs. So we are delivering skilled labor into those manufacturers because they're telling us how to train them. And while some of it is remedial math and science, a lot of it is what you're going to do on a shop floor, and that very quickly helps skill a person up to work in a manufacturing environment.
Darrell West, who used to be at Brown University, who's now at Brookings, just came out with a book on automation and AI, and sounds the warning that get ready, this is going to happen fast. Spent a lot of time in China over the past 2 years, and says the workplace, the workforce, is going to be dramatically impacted in not 10 years, but in 24, 36 months. And that lots and lots of elements of our employment will be replaced through automation and AI. How are manufacturers getting ready for that? How are they thinking about that? Or is this going to hit them when their competitor across the world or across the country all of a sudden gets a lot more efficient, cuts their labor costs by 20%? How do companies here get ready for that?
There are a few, so manufacturing employers understand it and are doing their best to get ready. I don't think the artificial intelligence or the Internet of Things is going to have a dramatic impact in 24 to 36 months. But certainly that's got an influence in terms of how manufacturing companies are thinking today. I was just this morning at the Cooley Group where they are a textile manufacturer, and you would think, old
over
school.
In Pawtucket,
exactly
they make
right.
big tarps and
Yep, in fact,
technical.
the covering for the Super Bowl this year was made with Cooley fabric. So very high technical. And you wouldn't necessarily think of that as a company that's looking at the Internet of Things and looking at data analysis, but they are pushing that technology onto the manufacturing floor. So, the manufacturing environment of the last few decades has really evolved, and the manufacturing companies that are around today and really excelling today are the ones that have embraced these changes and embraced the ability to really push technology and push their workforce. So they're certainly ready and understanding what that change could mean for them, and they're trying to adapt as quickly as they can.
So Odysseia down in North Kingstown, who makes the high protein sort of peanut butter, brought in a robot, 18 months ago, funded by Alex Anani, and allowed them to redeploy, functionally cut the manufacturing workforce by a mammoth number and increase productivity by 300 or 400%. And if they weren't a nonprofit, sort of good folks, functionally 20, 30 people would have been out the door based on the performance of one machine. How do we get ready for that, I guess is the question, because you're starting to see numbers, and it's not just going to be purely on the manufacturing floor. I mean, there are predictions of accountants and other things. In media, most quarterly public companies short articles that appear in Bloomberg or in Associated Press are completely automated. Most college basketball game stories on platforms like Associated Press are completely automated. There's no human being taking it. They're taking it right out of the data books and out of the feed and right in and deployed to hundreds of news organizations across the country.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would assume that the taxi drivers that at some point were talking on their flip phones would never think their flip phone that they were talking on was going to put them out of business, right? And so in a manufacturing environment, DC is a great example. Polaris helped design their new facility down in Cowan.
Which is unbelievable.
It's a fantastic place, and we had a lot of fun laying the whole thing out and working with them. And a lot of the companies that we work with on lean manufacturing process, the point of that is to do more with less people. But all of those programs focus on deploying those people. Every single company has the opportunity to do more. So there's people that now are not, moving bags back and forth. They're now doing a higher value add job, right? Which in addition requires more skills, and that pulls in the educational programs with Real Jobs Rhode Island. And then as well as increases their wages because now the company's making more, they're producing more, and they're making more money off of it. So it's a shift that has happened over decades. So this is another shift that we're helping companies prepare for, and I think that the state is doing a good job of helping these manufacturing companies.
Wrap up, talk about a big success, then we'll talk about a frustration failure that you're dealing with now. Would you talk about a big success where you think you've had in this sort of consulting role, a significant impact?
Sure. So there's another automotive manufacturer that is down by the airport right now, and they had 4 facilities across the state of Rhode Island, and were operating and were profitable. However, they were really seeing a lot of their margins tightened, and we helped them move into a new facility out by the airport. But it wasn't just moving their equipment. We really worked and got in the details with this company in terms of how they made their material moves, how to lay out the production floor from a people, equipment, and material standpoint. And now they bring raw material in one side, and out the other side comes automotive parts. So that's a really good example of not just facility layout, but we work with their management team, we work with their research and development team, and their production team to understand their business from start to end.
And a frustration, what's the one you're like, oh, I don't know why we can't fix that one?
Well, it's interesting. We have a program called the Manufacturing Innovation Challenge where we go into small manufacturers and really help them.
Kind of Gordon Ramsay-esque going into fixed restaurants,
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah, and we go in and sometimes.
Can we make it a reality show?
We can try.
GoLocal will broadcast it.
We'll see how this one ends up.
That's right.
Some of these companies, it's hard to hear what some of your shortcomings are. And engaging with the companies and getting them to realize how much some of these state programs can help them is sometimes frustrating. When you break through some of that barrier, boy, we've had great success with some of these companies.
That's great. So you're not going to name any names or
not
anything
right
like
now,
that? No. Listen, Christian, I want to thank you so much for coming on and really appreciate the whirlwind. We're in such a period of just tremendous speed of change. I mean, we were just talking a couple of weeks ago about all the things we've innovated here in the last 18 months, and we're a completely different business. And by the way, in 6 more months, we'll be a completely different business again. The speed of change for companies is so rapid. And manufacturers used to be kind of like newspapers, right? For 50, 100 years, they kind of did it the same way.
Right.
And now, if you do it the same way, you run the risk of being out of business almost instantaneously.
Absolutely.
So congratulations on the work and the success you're having. I want to thank our friends over at Commerce RI for bringing in some great guests and sponsoring this. We're going to be back at 4 o'clock with Gary Sass, the Money Man, and then Saul Kaplan, Mr. Innovation. We'll be back, and clearly there have been no scores in the World Cup games because we've not heard anyone from the background scream, "Goal!" We'll be back at 4 o'clock. Thanks so much.